Okay, hello, TEC400. Prof. Braden Evans coming at you. This week we'll be talking about working with data, our working with data lecture. So we're going to cover some, I guess, commonly used topics and tools when we're working with technical reports. And hopefully what you get from this is some practical knowledge and experience that you can start using and applying right away in your various course projects. So that's the goal here, and we'll see if we can help to save you some time by working with data efficiently, and also, learning to present it like a real technical person, like a scientist would do it. Okay, so trying to present our tables and figures and different sort of visual communications in a professional manner. All right, so hopefully this lecture is not too long. Try to keep it short and sweet for you, as I always do. So let's start out with the concept of abstracts. What is an abstract? Abstract is art, isn't it? It's abstract art, something not so concrete. Well, not really. In the world of technical reports, it's a summary. It's a summary of your whole report. It's actually another way of presenting an executive summary, which is maybe something you're familiar with. So an abstract is just something that comes right up at the front of the report, and it summarizes all of the key information that's in that report. So you might ask yourself, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just read the report? Well, if you're a manager of a big, busy department and there's lots of reports coming at you every day, you don't have time to do that, right? So you can scan the abstract, quickly get a sense of what's in the report, and then decide whether you should read certain sections in any greater detail, right? All right, so we call it the executive summary sometimes. It shows up on its own page, okay, alone. It's usually, one dense paragraph, less than a page for sure, okay? And it follows the title page, so it's in front of your report, all right? Also remember, it's the first thing we read, but it's the last thing you write, right? Because you need to have your intro, your body of your report, your findings, your conclusions. You need all of that to be able to prepare the abstract. So you actually write it as a last step. All right. Okay, so it really kind of quickly summarizes everything you've done. It highlights the main points, and it serves as a real helpful tool for the reader because, you don't have to read a whole report if you don't need to. And this lets you decide whether you really need to read it or not. Okay. It's like an overview. All right. It helps us decide whether we should bother going through it. Yeah, saves everybody time and effort. Remember, as communicators, as technical communicators, it's all about our audience, right? So we got to recognize, we're here to serve our audience, right? If it's written well like that, people will be grateful that you prepared it in a way that you didn't waste people's time, right? So we got to be concise, very to the point, right? It's going to be a well-developed paragraph, but just highlighting the most important parts of the report. You don't need to make it flowery, right? You don't need to make it sound elegant like Shakespeare. It's not about making it seem beautiful. It's about being efficient and effective, right? So minimize the number of words, minimize the amount of information, make it very clear, very informative. And it takes some practice to do that, right? But you got to find a way to distill your great big, I don't know, 20-page report, right? Down to a handful of sentences, less than a page, just clustered together into one paragraph. The things to think about when you're preparing this thing are here. Let's see if we can answer these questions. Why did we do this? How did we do that? So we're not going to give a detailed report of your methods, but you're going to say, you're going to mention which methods you used, right? And then, so what? What are the implications? What is the impact, right? Okay, so you kind of, telling the story of your report there. Just include the real sort of key high level items. You don't go into the details, right? You don't go into the step-by-step process and analysis, right? You just give the very sort of broadest, most general points. And then the reader will decide, oh, those methods seem interesting. I'm gonna go read the methods section, right? That's up to the reader, but you don't put that in the abstract. You just let them know what you did. And if they want to find out more, they go find the methods section, okay? A little bit of background, not like an introduction where you give lots of background information and kind of set up your report. You're just giving here's why I did it, okay? What are your goals? Your methods, again, but just the basics of what you did, the very basics of your results as well, right? So you want people to know like what the report found, right? And then what the implications are. What's the conclusion? What are you taking out of it? What does it mean that you found this? Okay. If there are specific recommendations for the future, or maybe limitations, right? Say, hey, this I discovered how to use this new tool, and it's written up in this report. This new tool is very useful. It can help with anything, related to the automotive sector, except it should not apply to trucks and scooters. Okay, so cars are okay, but not trucks and scooters. Okay, the point is that you can specify upfront whether someone considering the use of your tool, your report, for a certain application should actually read it or not, right? So if I'm interested in trucks, then I won't read it because I know your tool is designed for cars, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Some tips, okay. Follow the sequence of your report, right? Keep it logical, make it flow. Start at the beginning and finish at the end, okay? Only the most important information. Be sure to sort of highlight the implications. If there are limitations, make sure to spell them out so you're not misleading anyone, right? And yeah, it should stand alone. I like to say self-contained or standalone. Like you should be able to just read the abstract and get a good sense of what was in the report, right? Understand what was in the report. And then, if you want details, you go read the report, but it should be, a complete summary of the report. Don't put any graphs in, no pictures, equations, no abbreviations or acronyms, no citations either. So that's fun, right? You don't need any sort of reference or citation because you're just referring to your own report, right? And then in your report, you'll have citations for different parts of it, but in the abstract, nothing like that. It's just a paragraph of text, okay? Okay, so that's the abstract. Hopefully everybody's comfortable with that. We're gonna move over now to some applications in Word. I mean, I assume you're using Google Docs or some version of Word, and that this is gonna apply to you. Something pretty, I think, universal is when you're working on technical information, you got to have a table of contents. You got to have an area where you can refer to different sections, right? And I see all the time in student submissions, tables of contents that are not in line with what's in the body of the paper. Things aren't labeled correctly or consistently. There's a lot of errors that can be made when we're doing a table of contents manually. But it's so easy to do automatically, and it saves you all the trouble of having to correct errors, okay? It's a lot more accurate. So we're gonna walk through the process of creating an automatic table of contents together. And hopefully you'll find this useful when you're writing your report. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over to Word here. I guess I can't really keep this in front of you. I'm going to put a Word document in front of you. Can you see that? Perfect. Okay, so I'll flip back and forth here. Let's see, what are some common headings that we might expect to use in our table of contents? And you can see what I've got here, an abstract, an introduction, our arguments, our main points, right? A, B, and C, our conclusion, and our references. So let's put that in. Let's pretend I'm working on my report here with you, my partner in class here. All right, so we're gonna have an abstract. And then down here we'll have blah, blah, blah. That's what we're working on, right, in our abstract. And on the next page, we start the actual report. So we go to the next page, we'll go introduction, right? And we have our blah, blah for our introduction. maybe that takes a page. On the next page, what did I say? Methods. Oh, arguments, right? It's like an argument essay type of report. So argument A. Our argument says, blah. And further down the page, we'll do argument B, right? This is the next main point in our paper. So blah here. And then we go into the next page and we'll have argument C. And that one goes on all the way down to the bottom of the page. Okay, now we're gonna have a conclusion, right? Conclusion. We're down even a bit further. And this is where our references will be. Okay, so there's our report. Now, obviously, we're going to fill this in with some writing, right? But we'll start with an abstract, intro, argument A, B, and C, conclusion. And on page 6 down here, we have our references. Okay, that's good. That's how I usually start my papers, right? I'll put some headings in and then start to think about like what I need to include, what research I need to do to write up my different sections, right? Okay, so here's where we're going to start working on our table of contents. Okay, so we'll go to the top. So we'll go to the top. Right? It's usually at the front, right, that you have this. Let's move our abstract down. We'll go here, right? And we'll go to, sorry, I'll do it this way. We'll go to references. Okay, so this is the key, guys. Go to references, right here on the left, table of contents. Click on that, and you have different sort of styling options, right? But you want an automatic table. So I like to use automatic table 1. Okay, so we'll click on that. Oh, wait a minute. We don't have a table. Look, it says no table of content entries found. So what happened here? Well, maybe we didn't specify what should go into our table of contents. So go back to our home tab here. And what I've got to do is actually indicate to my Word document, to my table of contents, that these headings that I've prepared here are actually headings. Right now, they just look like text, right? So here we go. Heading number 1, I'll call it, okay? So that's our abstract, and we'll do that for all of the headings that we've created. So we have an abstract, we have an introduction, so highlight it, click on heading 1. Let's go down to our argument A, highlight it, heading 1. They're all heading style 1. They're all like first order headings, meaning they're all like equal level headings. If we have subsections, subheadings, then we might use heading level 2, but we'll just keep using heading level 1. Okay, highlight your text, what you want. Don't highlight the written parts, right? Just the headings, okay? To our conclusion, heading 1. And finally, we'll do our references. Okay, here we go. Heading 1, okay, great. Okay, so that's everything we got here. Let's go back up to our table of contents. What? The table of contents still shows no contents. Okay, so let me click on it here for a second. Aha, I see update table. So I'm going to click that. Look at that. Just like that, my table has been built. Amazing. And it says contents here, but you know what? I want it to say table. So I just type that out myself. Table of contents. Maybe put a space here before abstract, space it out a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, looks great, right? So we now have a table. We have these working pieces that we can get with, okay? But here's the thing. This is a shared document, let's say, right? And I'm working with you, my partner, my friend, and tomorrow evening you get home from work and you say, oh, I'm going to put some time in here. I'm going to put some work in. So here's what I'll do. I'll just move this down here. Move my abstract down to page 2, right? I'll fill it out. I'll scroll down. Okay, good. My intro starts on page 3. And then I'm going to write a whole bunch of stuff, right? Blah, blah, lots of research, blah, about my introduction, right? And okay, good. So that moved my argument A all the way down here, right? Okay, so now I did some research and I started working on argument A, my main first point, right? So that's going to move this down. So I go blah, blah. And my argument B gets a little further down. Okay, and argument C is further down and so on, right? So I've actually moved everything. So if you look down below here, now I have I started out with a 6-page document, right? But now it's an 8-page document. I'm on page 6 of 8, right? Because I added a lot of content, all right? So I go down and look at, oh, there's page 7, page 8, my references end up on page 8. Okay, so if I go back to the top, wait a minute, this says it's a 6-page report, right? So what do I gotta do? Just click on it, update table. I usually say update the entire table because I may have moved things around and changed a subject or something like that. So update the entire table. And there we have it. References are on page 7. They spill into page 8. So maybe I'll scroll down. Let me put them down to page there. Now they're on page 8. So if I go back up top, see it's not updated. It says page 7. So I'll click on it again, update table, update the whole thing. There we go. References show up on page 8. Okay, just one other little trick. If you're adding different layers, okay, you need to embed subsections under sections, right? So let's say we have argument A. Let's just say we're talking about in argument A, we'll call it, let's rename it, okay? We'll rename it climate change, okay? Climate change. That's our main, one of our main sections here. And under climate change, we're looking at a couple different things. We're looking at emissions, and then we have another subsection, which is sea levels, okay? So those are two different aspects of climate change that we're looking at. And so I'm going to highlight these because they're subheadings, right? They're a level below the climate change heading, but they're still headings. So rather than heading 1, because that would make it, you know, on the same level as climate change, I'm going to heading 2, okay? This shows that it's a subheading. It's a section of climate change, okay? I'll do the same thing with sea levels. Okay, so you see that? Now I've got a climate change section, and emissions and sea levels are my subsections because I've given them the different heading level. If I go back up to my table of contents, click on it, hit update the entire table, there it is. Look at that. See it right there. It's showing. There we go. Okay, so now I can see I've got climate change, and underneath climate change, I've got emissions and sea levels. Okay, hopefully that's clear enough for you guys. I think it's really important because as we work on shared documents, you might adjust it, and then the next day I'll come to it and I'll move things around. And you really you can waste a lot of your valuable time doing a table of contents manually. Plus, you're so much more prone to errors, okay? So this is a great way to get it done quickly, and you know it's going to be accurate. Okay, so we've updated our TOC, we done all that stuff. Okay, one other pointer here. You know, Google is your friend. So I've shared a link with you guys in the slides here that would show you where you can get some information on creating an automatic table of contents. Okay. Okay, now we'll move on to the third and final phase of our lecture today. We're going to talk about presenting data. Okay, we're going to look at items that relate to visual communication. So when we're technical communicators, we're talking about tables, graphs, figures, that kind of thing, right? Things I want you to look at as we go through these different examples. I want you to look at where the caption is located for a figure, where it's located for a table, and how much info goes into your caption. So I'm going to be picky on your papers and stuff. When you submit something to me, after I've gone through this with you in lecture, I expect you to be able to do this the right way. Okay, sometimes you'll do a Google search, you'll find something on the internet, and it's not done the right way at all, right? And so, you know, you guys coming out of Seneca as technical communicators, you should be able to do this properly, okay? So let's take a look at our captions and our figures and our tables, okay? So these display items, these visual items, figures and tables, it's a really quick way to communicate some complex information sometimes, right? Like a graph can tell you so much if you know how to read a graph, right? So instead of writing a whole paragraph about it, you produce a graph and it makes it so much easier on the reader, okay? Sometimes, I do this sometimes people will just look at like the graphs and tables and figures on their own. And you know, they won't even bother reading the text. So it's important that your captions are complete and thorough and that they can stand alone, right? So that you can, you know, look at this graph, read the caption and understand it completely, okay? Make it compelling, make it look good, make it interesting to look at, use high quality stuff and people will appreciate your work that much more. Okay, so we'll start with tables. Okay, tables are, you know, columns and rows of numbers, usually. Sometimes there's some data that is not in numerical form, right? Sometimes it's some categorical data, like a types of cars, right? Or types of houses, you know, but generally it's numbers in there, right? And it really just kind of the organization of the columns and rows helps you understand the information, okay? You give units, you give a full complete caption, give the reader all the information that they need to completely understand a table by looking at the table on its own, okay? So table number one, here we go. This is from a peer-reviewed journal article. So this is pretty technical stuff. So I don't expect that, you know, we're going to understand this in all of its detail, but let's look at how it's organized. First off, is the caption, when I say caption, I mean title, okay? Is the caption above or below the table? It's always above, okay? Always above. Always put your table captions above. For your figure captions, we're going to go below. But this is your caption. It's another way of saying the title, okay? So table 2, right? It says the ecological footprint ledger of the energy resources in Jifangu watershed before and after the Grain for Green policy. So that's pretty concise. It's one sentence, but it gives you a lot of information, right? And so you can see now that we're looking at this data, which is recorded before, oops, and after this policy came into effect, right? And if you cut it right through here, you can see, yep, here's before, here's after, and it's the same categories: coal, petrol, diesel, electricity, coal, petrol, diesel, electricity. So there's these categories of energy sources, right? Okay, so that's great. I think that's an excellent caption. Sometimes our captions need to be much longer than that because, you know, there's more involved, but this is a very concise caption. And then you can see they're comparing, you know, this energy use before and after the policy, right? So we've got some consumption data up here before the policy, and then, oh, after the policy, some of these dropped quite a bit, right? Conversion coefficient, you know, these columns, I mean, yeah, these column headings, I don't know them all or know necessarily everything that they imply, right? Because this is from the Journal of Environmental Earth Sciences. So, you know, I'm not an environmental earth science guy. I'm an entomologist, right? So the details of this maybe I won't understand, but the way the information laid out is laid out is really clear. One more thing I want you to observe: how many lines are in our table? One at the start to say the table's starting, one below the caption, one below the column headers, right? And one at the end of the table to say this is the table, the information's done. So look at the lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are any of these lines vertical? Vertical lines? No. Okay, get out of the habit of using vertical lines. Only horizontal lines, okay? No vertical lines like this, right? You know, sometimes we produce tables where there's a line in every direction around every piece of data. So you've got every single row, right? Split with a line, split with a line, right? And so on. It goes on and on and on. And then every single column split with a line. That's a lot of lines, guys. When you're presenting data visually, make use of empty white space. It's important, okay? It draws attention to the key information, okay? So use the white space, the gaps in between these columns here. That's great. It just draws attention to the columns better, okay? So don't overdo it with lines. Keep your caption above the table and make sure your caption is complete. Okay, see that? The table on the left shows the same approach that we just looked at, right? Just a couple of horizontal lines. Table on the right, there's a line around every single piece of information. We don't need that, okay? It's a lot cleaner when we use the white space. Okay, now getting to this concept of captions, right? The titles. Make sure it tells you what you're looking at. So this first one, what am I finding out from this? Well, not much, right? It says height after treatment. Height of what? What are the treatments? What are the units? Okay, I see days. I see, I see light 12, 16, 12 or 16 watts. Is that a light treatment? 16 hours of light, 12 hours of light? I don't know, right? You have to explain what's in there, okay? And then what are these units? 70.3 what? Meters, centimeters, right? So there's really a lot of information missing here, okay? Now let's take a look at option number 2 here, okay? Again, this is from a peer-reviewed journal article, right? It's very specialized, so it's about, you know, what penguins are eating in the ocean, right? So I don't expect that, you know, we're all going to be experts in this area, but we should be able to get a sense of what's in this table from the caption. So nice to see the caption is above the table. That's good, right? Right here, right? And it says stomach sample composition. So what was in the stomach samples of the main prey groups, the main food types, okay, consumed by macaroni penguins, so a specific species of penguin, during chick rearing, when they're having their babies, based on the total wet mass of the food items, the prey components, in all samples combined. Holy smokes. That is so much more information than here, right? And look at, we have units. So G is for grams, right? Percentage. Excellent. Okay. So now we can break it down. So I know that these things here are, you know, different types of marine invertebrates, right? Squids and crustaceans and starfish and things like that. Okay. But you don't, you know, you guys aren't biologists necessarily. You may not know that. That's okay. You can tell from the caption that these are different types of food that the penguins are eating, and they break it down, right? So the guard, that's one of the parents, right? The creche is another one of the parents, right? So different parents doing different things. Here's what they've got in their stomachs. Okay, so be mindful of having a real detailed and thorough table caption. If you're able to make it like very concise, that's great, but put in as much information as you need to make it complete, to make it standalone. Okay, so now we'll go over to figures, and it's important that you recognize there's a difference between tables and figures. So tables are rows and columns of numbers, right? Figures are everything else. What's that? Well, photographs, images, data plots, graphs, bar graphs, line graphs, maps, schematics, processes, right? Any other visual element you include in your paper or presentation is going to be a figure and not a table, okay? Everything else is other than tables, everything else is put into the figure category. Okay, so let's look at a couple different things here. So this is an example of a figure, right? This is a bar graph, right? Like a histogram. We've got our y-axis, x-axis, and we've got these different categories of things here represented by the bars, right? We've got error bars. Look at that. We've got our treatments, so our categories, oops, down here, right? And then here we're looking at germination, so I guess something to do with plants, right? And look, in brackets here, you see percentage. So that's our units, right? What percentage germinated, right? And where is our figure caption? Always underneath, okay? This is the caption right here, okay? So for our tables, it was up here. For figures, it's at the bottom. And look at all the detail here, right? There's a lot of information there because it needs to stand alone. There's a lot going on here, a lot of information. And so to make sure that, you know, the reader can clearly understand what is in that figure, you need a longer caption in this case, right? To really explain it. Okay, another one is images. So this is one of my pet peeves with students is that, you know, when you include images, sometimes you just grab the first thing you find on a Google search and it'll be like a cartoony drawing of something, right? I want students to use compelling images, right? Make them, you know, something interesting to look at, okay? But again, images are a type of figure, okay? So here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is one relating to climate change, right? If you got to choose an image that you want to submit in your paper presentation, please use this one and not this one. Okay, the cartoony drawings are not compelling. They're not interesting to look at. This tells me so much, right? I got an ice road, I got a forest fire, I got a flood, I got a drought. There's so much going on here. This little help sign, I get it. You're saying the earth needs help, but use a compelling image. Use something that's impactful that I'm going to look at and go, wow, that's interesting. Okay, data plots, okay? So plots are good too. Can relay a lot of information, but you just got to make sure everything is labeled. Your units, your axes, have a legend if you need it, right? So for any type of plot or graph, make sure everything is explained so that people can understand it, okay? So here's one. We've got a nice simple one. I like that too, right? We don't need this grid behind, but that's okay. You've got a simple, like, y-axis is sales in dollars, right? We can see that dollars are the units, right? And then the x-axis, temperature, tells you right here, degrees Celsius, okay? So that's good, right? And then look, we have what some might call a positive correlation in the data, right? It kind of goes this way. So what that means is that as sales increase, or I'm sorry, the independent variable is the temperature, right? So as temperature increases, sales increase, right? So this goes up, this goes up. You see that in the angle on your graph here. So what could this represent? I wonder. Maybe ice cream? The warmer it gets, the more ice cream we sell? Maybe. Or maybe bathing suits, sandals, you know, whatever. But that's a nice clean graph, simple, right? Easy to understand. Needs a caption, but it's the right idea. Okay, maps, again, maps, you got to include things like scales, latitudes, longitudes, legends, like make a map look good, right? So explain what's the red, what's the green, what's the blue, what's the yellow, right? Make sure you have something that really sort of makes your map easy and straightforward to understand. Then probably the hardest one is like a schematic, right? Something like this. Oof, Look at that caption below. That's a paragraph, but it's necessary because if you look at the schematic, the diagram here, it's explaining some very complicated processes. This is a cell membrane, okay? It's a cell membrane. Here's inside the cell here. And it's showing how all these ions are flowing through some channels into the layers of the membrane, maybe back out, right? There's a hydrogen coming out, right? Some hydrogen are coming in, hydrogen's going out, and so on. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. It's a super complex diagram schematic, and so of course, accordingly, the caption is long and detailed as well. Okay, so folks, that is it. That was nice and short and sweet as promised. I am trying to do that as much as I can for these recorded lectures. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that this can save you some time and grief when you're preparing your data for assignments. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.